You ever wonder how a country really builds its economic muscle? It's not just about services or having a ton of natural resources. A huge part of it is the incredible power of just, well, making things. So today we're going to pop the hood on Malaysia's industrial engine and really see what makes it tick. So let's start with that big question. How does a nation build its future? A huge piece of that puzzle, it turns out, is pretty straightforward. It's the ability to take raw materials and actually transform them into something new, something that has value. It's all about building, manufacturing, and creating. And all of that action, it happens right here, in what you could call the economy's engine room. This is the place where a country's industrial power is literally forged. Now, in economics speak, we call this the secondary sector. All that means is it's the part of the economy that takes raw stuff, things from farms, from mines, from forests, and turns it all into the finished products we use every single day. We're talking about everything from your car to your phone to the building you're in right now. This is truly the industrial heart of a nation. But here's the thing. This massive, powerful engine wasn't just built by accident. Nope. In Malaysia's case, it was put together with a really deliberate blueprint, a step-by-step strategic plan to build up that industrial muscle over time. So this development basically rolled out in 3 distinct phases, and each one was a really logical step. First up, you had import substitution. The idea here was super simple. Hey, why are we buying this from other countries when we can just make it ourselves? This built a really solid foundation of self-sufficiency. Then, once they got good at it, the strategy shifted to being export-orientated. That's the moment where it's like, okay, we're pretty good at this, let's sell it to the world. And finally, the big one, the focus on heavy industry. This is when they started tackling the really complex stuff. Steel, cars, the whole shebang. It was the let's build the big stuff phase, aiming for true industrial power. Okay, so the engine is built, it's up and running, but what was the actual impact? What did it really produce for the country? Well, the contributions are just massive. For starters, it's a huge boost to the national income, and it creates a ton of jobs. But it goes deeper than that. It completely transformed Malaysia's identity on the world stage, from a country that buys things to a global manufacturer that makes them. This sector also feeds into all the other parts of the economy, and of course, connects Malaysia to the entire world through these huge supply chains and partnerships. And if you want to see the real-world impact, just look at this chart. This shows the GDP, which is basically just a measure of all the value being created from manufacturing and construction. What's the overall trend? A powerful, unmistakable climb upwards. And yeah, you probably see that sharp dip around 2020. But even with major global disruptions, look how fast it bounced back. That's a classic V-shaped recovery, and it shows you just how incredibly resilient and strong this sector really is. But, that kind of strength doesn't mean the ride is always perfectly smooth. In fact, that strength gets tested all the time. Because every engine, it doesn't matter how powerful it is, eventually starts to show some signs of friction, right? No system runs perfectly forever. And understanding the hurdles, the challenges, that's absolutely the key to keeping this engine running strong long into the future. And what's interesting is that the challenges are kind of different depending on how big you are. The giants, the heavy industries, they're struggling with things like high production costs, a shortage of skilled workers, and just making sure all the different industries are actually connected and working together. But then you have the small and medium enterprises, the SMEs, and they've got their own set of pressures. Things like lower productivity, not enough investment, and a real gap in their tech capabilities. So what's the upshot of all this? Well, it means it's time for a tune-up. It's about facing these challenges head-on to make sure this engine is fit and ready for whatever the future throws at it. And that brings us to the crucial takeaway. Look, a lot of people know Malaysia for specific things, like semiconductors, right? But the key point is that it's the entire secondary sector that's the real powerhouse here. It's what fuels the growth, it's what turns resources into real value, and it's the very foundation of the nation's ability to compete on a global scale. So, all of this leaves us with one final and really important question to think about. When you consider all the new technologies, the shifts in the global economy, and these internal challenges, what is the next gear for Malaysia's industrial engine? Because where it goes from here is going to define its future. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.